Welcome to the Replace Loss with Love podcast. I'm your host, Trevilia Hodge, and thank you for coming back. For all those who have been here with us and for our new people, thank you for being here. I just want to share this platform is to help people learn how to work through your loss and replace it with love. And if you have not seen the first 3 episodes, you may want to go back and see them. Those episodes are personal to me, as well as eye-opening to some things that I have lived through. But first, I want to share that we do have a disclaimer that this bonus episode that's going to be in addition to the 3 can be triggering. We're going to be talking about domestic violence as well as abuse. So I just want to give you the heads up on that. And again, reference the first 3 episodes because I talk about a domestic violence matter that happened in my life that resulted to the loss of a child. And so in that matter, I want to bring in the lovely Selena Hill, who I will let her introduce herself because I cannot do it any good, even if I tried. And I just
Trevilia,
thank you,
thank
Selena,
you
for being here
so
with
much
me
for
again.
having me.
And
So happy to be here again as your guest host for Replace Loss with Love. As you just said, my name is Selena Hill. I'm an award-winning journalist, the director of multi-platform content at Black Enterprise, also on-air personality, host, all the things in media, if you can, that you can think of. Also the founder of Hill Rise Media. And I'm so happy again to have this bonus conversation with you because the first 3 conversations we had were so impactful. Like you said, everyone go back and listen. Trevilia is literally one of the strongest, most resilient women that I have met. You have been courageous enough to share the most vulnerable parts of your story, which is, again, how you said, being in a domestically abusive relationship, how it resulted in the loss of a child. But this episode, you told me you wanted to have it because you've been triggered after seeing the Pete Diddy video of him abusing his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. I know CNN played the whole video. It was about 8 to 9 minutes. I know I watched it myself. It was very, very disturbing. Everybody on the internet is talking about it. Trevilia, why did you want to talk about it?
well, I went through something similar. And so when I saw it, I watched the whole thing. It startled me. That was first off. Triggered me in a way because my heart automatically went out to her. And then I was brought back in time to my own incident. And after I spent a few days reflecting and journaling and praying and just being in a space and in a safe space within my home, I was very grateful because I realized how much stronger I am and where I am now. And I am literally operating in my healing because I'm able to articulate where I am and then still wanting the need to help somebody. So that was a big thing for me. That one of the first matters that came out of my being was how can I aid in the conversation for those people who um, are speaking that have never been with someone who's experienced this, so they're very curious. We have a lot of very curious people out there. They're right to their own opinions, but they may never have met anyone like me. You have people out there who have been through similar situations or maybe something that's I can't even imagine that they've been through and they don't know how to advocate for themselves or they're ready to have a conversation and they don't know how to have a conversation about it or where maybe to go to get help. And they may feel the shame and embarrassment behind it or feel like they have nowhere to go. So there's a number of reasons why I wanted to join in the conversation. I may not touch a point on that particular video or what they've been through per se because I don't know them personally and I'm not here to cast judgment or put my opinion there. But someone may want to make a comment about, well, how did you get out of it? Or where are you now and how did you get to where you are? And for me, because it's still so new for her, even though the video is several years old, it took me 20 years plus not only openly have a conversation with now anybody who can see this anywhere in the world, but it took me 20 plus years to even talk to my family. And so I don't have a problem with being vulnerable. And I trust you in being here with me and articulating questions that I know I would be comfortable answering. So this is for the lost voices, and even the lost voice that was in me at one point that did not know how to do what I could do today. And I hope it helps. I'm here for it to help someone. Maybe they'll draw strength from it. Maybe they will draw the ability to say, you know what, I could take one step. I don't need to take 10,000 steps. I could just take one step. Or I can even just write in a journal.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a big step too, because just one action towards healing and getting better or being in a safer
Right.
space if you're still in it matters.
It
So
does.
this is where I am today. And this is why I'm here with you.
What did you feel when you saw the video of P. Diddy again abusing Cassie Ventura 2016 in a hotel
Wow.
lobby, caught on film?
The
We
first
see
thing
her
I
kick
felt
her,
was
we see him kick her at least twice. We see him drag her, punch her, aim through a vase at her.
immediately the mom in me, right? Even though I don't have a son or a daughter that I birthed, the mom in me wanted to go and like find this girl, even though I don't know her. I That was the first, literally the first. I did feel anger coming up because the audacity of him to put his feet and his hands on anybody. He has daughters, he has a mother. What if that was your daughter? What if that was your mother? But again, I had to come away from it
Mhm.
because I've been on the other end of someone's foot. I've been on the other end of someone throwing something at me. Uh, and so then I went there. I went back 24 years ago. This month, I lost my son. This month, 24 years ago.
Wow.
And I was kicked several times.
Really?
I had things thrown at me, television thrown through the table. It wasn't public. It was in the house. Um, and that woman that I was, she didn't resurface because I'm not her any longer. But that tragedy still is in me. So I got a little tense because I remember feeling so low, so distant from what I dreamt with this man. And like asking myself, how did we get here?
Mm.
So removed from the intimate conversations and the promises that we made to one another and the life that we saw ourselves building together, to be at the bottom of his foot articulated a conversation that I did not see coming. Um, and two, it was hard to get away from.
Trevilia, for those who don't know, who are you referring to?
He was my fiance at the time. We were planning on getting married. My son's father as well. And this is who I'm referring to. We had a
And
domestic.
how many months pregnant were you at the time?
I was in my first trimester. I was 3 months pregnant.
Okay. And you
Mhm.
were in a domestic, there was a domestic dispute. Just to be clear, for folks who aren't familiar, there was a domestic dispute between you and your partner where your partner violently attacked you. You were 3 months pregnant. As a result of that attack, you then suffered a miscarriage shortly thereafter, thus losing, when you say son, that was your unborn son.
Yes.
I think when a lot of the chatter around the P. Diddy video of Diddy attacking Cassie is, why did she stay so long? Because they were together for 10 years. And some folks even said, like, you know, in this situation, why didn't she move more urgently? It's just a lot of victim blaming. I want to get your perspective on that. When you hear someone say, why did she stay, or why would you stay with someone who's physically abusive? What do you say to that question?
It's always easier to ask why when you're not in it. It is. It is. And I'm not saying anything negative against someone who asks someone why would you stay. Um, when you're building a life with someone that you are in, well, I can speak for me. Let me speak for me because I was in love with my fiance. Not in like, not, I loved him. And at the time, we were not necessarily the healthiest for one another, but I was younger. I didn't know some of the cues that I know today. Um, we we did see a life with one another, right? We did. It's hard for me to speak for him because he's not here. But even his family, like he loved you and he did. And I was in love with him. At that time, sometimes you're in love and then sometimes you gotta work to get back there. But at that time I was in love with this man and I was blown away that I was able to carry to this point and just in a space where it was acceptance, okay, I'm pregnant and we're pregnant and this could be our life and dreaming a little different in that space and just not ever seeing that happening to me. Did not see any flags at the time, but again, I may not have known flags to see that he would have done this to me. And initially after everything happened, I didn't stay. We were separate for months. And then we began to have conversations and talk through it. And he made promises to me, not just to go and like he'll never do it again, but he did reveal to me that it was a drug induced um, moment in his life that he would never do that again and he wanted to go get some help. And would I be in his life and support him through it? And I said yes. So we were slow grooving to reconcile in that standpoint because he took ownership for what he did. He took ownership of um, being remorseful, right? I had to find that word. He was very remorseful. And I believed him, which a lot of people do. Even if you are in a relationship and somebody lies to you and you find out the lie and you feel like it's death do you part and you work through it, I just thought I was taking the healthiest steps to work through it. And unfortunately, he passed away. So that's where, in that standpoint, with Cassie and Diddy, where they are, um, they were together for years afterwards. He passed away um, abruptly. And so I don't know how long I would have stayed or if he would have never done it again. He did not for the months that we were together before he passed away. He never put his hands on me ever because this man never really yelled at me. Like we didn't have like we've had arguments, but we never had anything where I felt like I had to protect myself. And so to know where she's been in that space where that happened repeatedly to her, that's where it differs. And my heart really goes out to her even more. Because I don't know how I can handle if that would have happened over and over again, especially with growing up in an abusive environment. So for me, it was very important that when he said what he said to me, I trusted it and I believed it because he also knew about my history. And so that wouldn't have been something that I could have said, okay, I'm going to continue to allow you to have these episodes. There's no way. I would have then told my family, and it would have been a problem.
When you say he knew your history, what are you referring to?
Okay, so, ooh, this is the first time I'm talking about this publicly. I was abused as a girl. And he knew that. And he was very candid in wanting to talk about it when I was ready and to help me through it.
When you say abused as a child, physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, what type of abuse did you endure and suffer from?
All
All the abuse. Was it a certain period of time? Was it throughout your entire childhood? Was it between like a certain amount of years?
The physical abuse was from about 6 years old until I was 14. The emotional and verbal abuse was about until was maybe 17. Because then I left home at one point. I left. Because at one point I tried to get emancipated, and my mother found out, and she wasn't really happy with me about that. But I was determined to not only get myself out of that situation, but I wanted to take my brothers with me. I won't go into details about that, why I was not going to leave them there, but she found out that I was going to get emancipated. So she did several things to stop that from happening. And then eventually I just left the home for about a year almost. And then I came back. Um, so that was a challenging time for me regarding my relationship with my family. But um, I was abused by more than one person as far as sexual. Um, but the main abuse came from her then husband.
Gotcha. And your mom was abusive too, verbally and emotionally?
Yes, yes, my mother was very much so. Um, she, I love my mother, so this is very tough for me to say and to talk about it openly. But those who know, and I'm not here to bash her. However, there were some precursors in my life where I can't talk about me in totality if I don't talk about that. But she was emotionally and verbally abusive to me. Um, and it was unfortunate because we didn't have the greatest relationship until just before she passed away. It was very up and down for many years, but through my childhood, especially from 8 years old until I was a teenager, it was a very challenging relationship with her. And when I hear like, mom and daughter talk about how they had their indifferences because you're a girl and you have your mother, our situation was extremely toxic. And she had her own story to tell. And I wish she would have told it before she left this earth. Um, but I had a lot of other mothers who mothered me and loved me. And that's where in the previous podcast episode, we talked about me dealing with suicidal ideation. But it started when I was 13. And I have never said that out loud. It started when I was 13 years old.
So the abuse got so bad that you, as a young woman, young girl, considered even just taking your own life. We thank God that that never happened. So you have a deeper understanding with Cassie and with many women because when you are a victim of abuse, especially as a child, you almost become conditioned for abuse as an adult. So it can be easier to accept abusive behavior from a partner because a lot of times that's all you know, or that's something that you've become accustomed to and has become your norm.
Well,
Was that the case for you?
yeah. And 20 plus years later, from the classes I've taken, the books I've read, the people I've studied under, building a relationship with God, not being religious, but having a relationship, uh, working through healing, I then see when I could reflect back on the younger me, the woman who could have not seen the flags if they were there, right? Um, and or then if I chose to ignore them, I listen. I'm going to be very honest. That could have been the case too, right? Because you want it, you in a space where you want your relationship to work. You want this to be the person that you spend your life with. Um, he has a wonderful family. They still love me today. Like, love me, adore me. I adore them. And I was excited to be a part of this family. It was a beautiful time because he started helping me break down walls. I used to be very guarded, extremely guarded. And it wasn't like he was my first relationship because I had somebody else prior to that that loved me dearly. And I didn't know how to love him back. And I had to work through that. And then losing that relationship that was much healthier than the one that I was in with Juancito. Um, because I did not know how to be in a healthy relationship. And he came from a two-parent household and he was just this wonderful guy. And then when I got into that relationship, he was from a two-parent household as well. But he was determined to break my walls. He was determined to be in my life. And it was something about that that was noble. And to me, you know, it wasn't about what he could offer me financially. It was what he was offering me emotionally that I had not gotten prior to. In that way, let me say that clearly because I don't want to take away from the person that I was with before him that I was engaged to. And so, um, and even losing that relationship taught me lessons. So I did try to be more present in this relationship, and there was a lot of growing to do, and I didn't know that at that time. I just was doing the best that I could and finding the joy in what I could find the joy in. And so 24 years later, being Tabitha Brown happy was a lot of work. And I may still have a lot of growing. I may look back on this 5 years from now and be like, well, but you're supposed to grow and you're supposed to learn in who you are every day. But I was really broken. Oof.
And, and I think that people underestimate the impact of brokenness and how it affects our decisions, our abilities to love ourselves, to demand respect and love from others and partners. It can show up and manifest in something as simple as being a people pleaser.
Oh
That's
yeah.
a direct reflection of having that brokenness, not
Yeah.
having the self-esteem and the self-worth to have boundaries, to say no. And it can show up in, more detrimental situations such as being in an abusive relationship. But with Cassie, I'm so glad that you talked about how much you loved your partner, because I think from the outside looking in, a lot of us, when we only see the abuse, we're like, leave that person. They don't see the pillow talk. They don't see the flowers. They don't see they made a great dinner. You guys had a great evening and you watched your favorite movie and you laughed all night and how they held you when you cried. We don't see the whole picture. It's just the horror. And like you said, when you are in love with someone and your identities and lives are so intertwined, it's not easy to just say, hey, I'm going to go pick up and leave. No, you guys may share bills together. You may have a house together. You may have cars or children. It is not something as, hey, you put your hands on me one time. I don't like how you shove me. And I'm just going to pick up and leave, because again, a lot of times it's years. You've already built a life together. It's like, God forbid, if you got into a fight with your coworker, would you just pick up and leave, or would you think about, hey, I got to pay my bills, my rent is due? You couldn't just stop working, even if you were even if your workplace culture was toxic. So I'm glad that you talked about that, Trevilia, because it does help us put a holistic perspective on it. Um, I do hope that more people would not seek to blame the victim and empathize. When we see you as your whole self. We see the healthy version of yourself. What would we have saw 20 years ago if we could see you back then?
Wow. Um, I deserve an Oscar. Okay, I do. I do. I deserve an Oscar for that performance. I promise you. Um, because I was a people pleaser.
Mm.
There was no in me, like for real. And I am so glad you said all of what you said about, you just don't pick up and leave a job and things like that, because I had some some of the most beautiful wedding renderings for this wedding. Like I had the custom gown was being made and this was being done. And so it was like a part where I could still smile because that person that I was, even in her brokenness, that was like a joy for her to think about what we were about to do in life. No matter, we didn't have the grandest plan now to get it done,
Yeah.
but we had the support of our families. And it also was a time where my mother was supportive at a certain point. And she was the one who had my wedding gown rendering made. And that was big for me because we didn't have that bonding type of relationship, her and I, right? Um, and his family was definitely supportive um and backing us up. So, but beneath it all, I did not want to deal with myself.
No.
I did not want to deal with my past. In my family, we didn't talk about what happened in the dark. We didn't talk about that the outside of my mother's two family home looked a certain way, but when you walked inside, there was a dining room patio furniture as our dining room table because her husband sold everything, right? Or one day I came home from school and he was taking the console TV that was on the floor and trying to take it down the stairs to go sell it for drugs. We didn't talk about that. We did not discuss that, but we went to church on Sunday and I sang down the whole congregation. You know, we sat in the pews and we smiled. And we had people over almost every Sunday for dinner at my grandmother's house who lived next door to us. And we played our parts. We did our roles. But you I come from an era where you don't speak to unless spoken to because you are in a child's place. So, and we didn't sit down and have family conversations or ask somebody, how do you feel about that? Or how do you feel about yourself? So this man loved a girl who, at 14 years old, was having her body sold for crack because her stepfather didn't have enough crack in the house to get high, even though he had the crack vials under the kitchen cabinets, clean out the residue in case he ran out of money and he maybe could scrap enough out to get high. Or people would be downstairs freebasing in our living room and the door is off our bedroom, so me and my brothers are smelling it. But we went to church every Sunday and we looked the part. And my mother also sang down heaven. And she was highly respected in the church. And I'm not saying she should have been disrespected because you would have a problem with me because I love my mother. But in the same avenue, we all were in our place of hiding whatever we were dealing with. And so this is who this man loved, you know? And so when there were opportunities and times that I could not be vulnerable to him or didn't know how to express myself because I just did not know how to do it, he stayed there. He worked through that too, you know? And that's not to say it should that takes away from what he did to me because I never put my hands on him. And he had his own issues outside of that, you know. I never did that to him. But in the same avenue, I was really broken. Like really broken, you know? Um, trying to figure out what I had to offer this world, to offer myself other than go to work, come home, go to work, come home, go to work, come home. And I knew there was more in me. Um, Wanting to have my degree because at one time I was one of the most highly sought after students in the US. And I'm gonna say that boldly. Okay. And having to drop out of high school, which a lot of people don't know. And at one point I had scholarships for many schools. So I wasn't available to him because I did not know how to find myself at that time. I just knew how to exist with
Mm.
what I had. And and even in the case, I probably wouldn't dated him if I was who I was today. But he helped
Mm.
me get to a place to seek who I could be. He definitely did that. Even with the way he loved me and even with the fighting and everything, because I did stand my ground with that. And I said, okay, because if we're even going to talk, I need to know how is this even going to look different for me? And I did stand my ground, which was big for me because I didn't stand my ground a lot to a lot of people. And even when I did, because I was a people pleaser,
Right.
people looked at me like I was crazy. Like, who are you to want to articulate or have a conversation or even buck back? But I'm like, I'm not bucking back. I just want to talk about where we are and why we're here. And I don't like how you're treating me. Um, and I didn't give myself room for that. You know, it was
Mm.
a very uncomfortable space for me. So he loved that woman, you know, who was just here. I'm gonna be honest. You know, that's why I get so amazed at how God's grace is so real and people miss it. But maybe if more people like me talk about their story, they could see a living version of God's grace. They could see a living version of his mercy and what faith does. Because um I don't tell people that I eventually dropped out of high school, but there was a reason why. My mentors were very crucial in my life. People who were there for me, my friends' mothers who loved me um, dearly, and I was embarrassed by that. I was ashamed of it because, again, I had opportunities. I got a scholarship to go to a private high school, full ride, but my mother decided when she found out I was getting emancipated that she was going to take me to a mental health facility because I needed to talk to somebody because she was taking me to clinic to tell them that maybe you can talk to her. She can stay here for a while. Blah, blah, blah. And when I diagnosed my mother to the physician, he was like, I don't know who this young lady is, but she is brilliant because I have read all the books. I had to understand what I was up against and what was going on and how she was codependent. And, I said, well, if you're going to talk about me, let's talk about the multiple rehabs we had to take him to. And he still is getting high. And the times that I've asked for us to be removed out of the home so we didn't have to be infringed upon what was going on. And you told me no, because you weren't going to leave your husband. And I just want me and my brothers to be safe. And so let's discuss all of the things that we have to deal with when you won't even come to my high school graduation. But this is multiple times taking him for treatment, multiple times with all the things, multiple times with the mistakes and us losing stuff. But you don't advocate for your own children. And I articulated that at 16-year-old to the doctor. And I said, if we're going to do anything, everybody's going to come and we're going to have some counseling because I'm not going to be here by myself because you want to cover up a lie, and the state got involved and removed my brothers out of the home because of the level of things that was going on in the home. And so I fought for them and they don't even know what I went through with that because I was like, I'm not having it. But because I was a child, still, it didn't translate in that way to the family. And my mother apologized to me 6 weeks before she died of how she lied because she had to cover it up. And the lie was on me. And she asked me to forgive her. And of course I did. I said, I fought my whole life to take care of you. Of course I forgive you. I forgave you years ago. Love doesn't operate in unforgiveness. And so the circumference of my life to get to that space, because I had gone through so much, and I'm not even talking about the other things, the absentee father and other things I had to deal with, but to be in a space where you felt disposable by your own mother, and you tell her, this man is doing this, and she tells you, I don't care. It happened to me, so get over it. Or when you get sold for the crack, and you got to fight the man off of you, and he's standing there watching because he's going to watch this man try to rape you. And then you're told to get in a car after the incident and go take a family photo because she paid for it. So her money to me was more important than my mental health and my sanity. It's May of 2024. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. So maybe somebody could understand you can get your mental health back if you never really pushed for it, right? To be in a healthy space mentally, dealing with some of the things that you may have dealt with your parents or people in your life.
What I'm hearing, Trevilia, and again, thank you so much for even sharing all of that with us today. What I'm hearing is that someone doesn't willfully enter an abusive relationship. It is years of trauma. Most of the time, that's connected to some type of abuse as a child, whether it's physical, whether it's negligence, it's attached. And when we aren't properly healed, we have a tendency to attract more abusers because that's all we know. That's what love looked like. It came in the form of abuse. That's what I'm hearing. And I want to, as we begin to wrap this episode, what do you want the audience to hear? Why did you decide to just put your business on Front Street? You know, why are you talking about this?
Right. Especially, we come from a generation, you don't tell your business, okay? You do not tell your business. One, I want to just really quickly go back to what you said about being conditioned for abuse, because nobody signs up for that. Nobody says, okay, where is the abuse people? So whether you are a woman or a man that's dealing with abuse, nobody says, okay, sign me up for that, because that's what I want to do today. But then that's where the healthier me comes in, because again, I would have never thought that this man would put his hands on me. You know, I don't know what Cassie knew of Diddy prior to dating him, or believing maybe she was the one and she changes. Like, say, for instance, like somebody gets married and are in a relationship and they break off the relationship, and then they see their ex doing everything that they asked them to do in their relationship, but they're doing it for someone else. We don't know. She could have been like, well, I did hear some things about him, but he promised me this is what he was going to be for me. And she believed it and she wanted it and she hoped and she had faith in that relationship. It could have been a myriad of things. And for me, honestly, I never saw this coming. But again, I was not healthy. I was in a very broken state. I had not done any of the work that I've done now to even be able to articulate what had went on in my life, for me to say it in a space where I still prayerfully have honored my mother. Because I do not want to be in a space to disrespect her, especially for those people who know how I loved her and took care of her until the day she died. I was there literally by myself when my mother took her last breath, reading her the Bible, loving on her, because obviously I knew that my mother was a broken woman. I didn't know it when I was a child, but as an adult, I saw it. I understood, because when I started doing the work. But what I want people to get from this, because to be this vulnerable, there is obviously a takeaway, right? It's not just out here, well, let me vent and tell y'all what happened to me, because I could have done this many, many years ago. In my brokenness, there was some integrity there. And so if you could just draw on the strength of someone like myself to understand that no matter what you were predisposed to, you don't have to emulate what you saw in life. I am living proof of that. I am not perfect. I have not always been this gracious and loving and kind to myself. I love me. I take care of me. I am still learning to put me first, but I do that more often than not. I pray when I do decide to be in another relationship and coexist with someone, it's the healthiest it's ever been. That is my prayer. That is my goal. My goal is to do all the things that I can see and the things that I dreamt about. So for me, the takeaway is use me as an example that if we would have had a conversation and I didn't say any of this, you couldn't even imagine that I had to go through that. And I didn't even tell you some other stuff that I had been through. And you can say, and just know today, there is no Oscar award winning performer. There is a woman who really wants to help people get to the next part of their life with whatever they're doing. Even if it's beyond what I said, and you're like, oh, I've gone through this. We're not swapping stories in a place to compete, but we are fostering opportunity for you to say, I can do it no matter where I am in life. If I see that I can be different, or I can look at someone and say, man, this person resonates with me. Because even though I had a mother that was young and broken and going through what she went through in her life, some of it I know, some of it I don't. I could look at a woman like a Cicely Tyson or a Viola Davis or a Felicia Rashad or Oprah, or even a Pinky Cole or the Judy, the Brat's wife, and glean from them. And some of them are younger than me, but they speak life into me. A B Marie of Coda Skin, she loves me. She always tells me, girl, just keep going, and we never met. But to see the opportunities and to then hear conversations in a podcast that I listen to, like The Basement that I love, or, different people that are out in my life, and then my pastors and ministers who have poured into me and allowed me to be vulnerable. I'm very blessed. Very, very. I'm not fortunate. I'm not lucky. I am blessed. I am whole. I am the best that I could have ever imagined. The person I was, she couldn't even imagine to be who I am today. And I haven't even gotten to where I want to be yet. And so for you to have that moment in your life, man, I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you. And you don't have to get on here and tell everybody your business. You ain't got the Reese Tisa, okay? You don't. And you don't have to Trevilia Hodge. And we shout out to Reese Tisa. Love you dearly. I'm proud of you. But in the same avenue, you can find a small community, because that's how it started for me. And I had safe spaces. And so this for me is a safe space. I don't know the response that it's going to get. But what I do know is I can drown out the noise for the people who I know I can help. So please, if you can take anything from that, take faith, hope, take everything, go read books. And one I can suggest before I go, Pastor Sarah Jakes Roberts. I had the sample of Power Moves before the book came out. And I was on the fence, and I had a lot of work to do in March. Selena can attest to get to this space. And all things were messed for, if this happens and you're going to do this, this stuff is going to come out. And I am a sure living example that power moves. And so the power that I put into being ashamed of myself, now I put into being proud of myself, holding my head up high and my back straight. And all of the women that I admire and that carry themselves with the grace and the elegance that they needed for them to put their back straight and hold their head up high. Take that, run with it, and don't let anybody keep you. Run with it and run like you running for your life, because you are. Please. And I told y'all my business so y'all can get that. So I hope you do. And understand that I love and respect my mother. And I thank God she's no longer where she was. And I thank God that we were able to reconcile. I thank God that a broken woman was able to birth someone like me. So even though you hear this story, she still made me. And I am the baddest of the bald head baddies, okay?
Sister Trevilia, thank you again so much for sharing and just being a light. Your testimony is so powerful, because if anyone knows you, they know how joyous, how giving, how friendly, how kind-hearted you are. Anybody who meets you just feels your spirit. And to know you suffered from so much abuse throughout your entire childhood, and then 20 years ago, but you learned how to replace loss with love, whether it was the loss of your unborn child or just the loss of the innocence of your childhood. You lost that as well, but you replaced that through love. And we thank you that you shared that, and you show how through the love of Christ can give anybody that love.
Yeah.
We all have that love inside of us. We can all tap, like you said, put that power into the love. It's hard.
Yeah.
But you did it, and anyone could do it. And before we go, we have your book. Tell us about your book, The Baby Elephant with the Blue Balloon. How can people get hold of your book and use that to help them?
Yeah. I love this book. I'm even more proud of this book after this episode. And I would say, go to Amazon. That's where it is right now. We're working on putting it in stores and having it on platforms, but it's in Amazon, The Baby Elephant with the Blue Balloon. And the reason why I'm feeling so much joy right now, because of the fact that that book is just a symbol of my healing. Because it doesn't have anything to do with my personal story, right? You would it doesn't emulate that at all, but it is a gift for people to be able to have the conversation that lost a child and see the symbol of love that they can hold in their hearts and understand that even though the child may not be here, that they're still parents, they're still worthy to hold that love in their heart and in their being. And I didn't even think I was gonna articulate that to say that I'm so proud of that because a broken woman could not have done that because I would have made it about my story. I would have made it about my pain. But I
Mhm.
made it as a symbol for anybody who is dealing with it or people that know someone that's dealing with it to share it with them, give it to them, and allow them to begin that healing process and have the conversation about what has happened if there's siblings involved. So I thought about the whole entire nucleus of families, no matter what they look like. So if you don't have other children, and it might just be you, I pray it resonates to you as well because you do have a symbol of love in you. And I believe that, today might be the proudest day my son would have had of his mother because I was able to express this and also still hold true to that young woman that was in love so many years ago, never saw things coming, and the one who loved her mother dearly and long for the relationship. So there's more to come. Follow me on Replace Loss with Love at Instagram because trust me, there's more to come. There is I will not spoil it, but there is another e-course coming titled I Once Was Lost. And that's an e-course with an ebook. And we talk about various things in that. And I believe that will help you. I really do if you want to start there. I plan on dropping it very soon. So please follow me on Facebook with Love on Instagram. But thank you for asking me that question, Selena, because I just felt like this joy, like literally, I mean, down on the inside of me, just rise up because if you would have asked me to do this even 10 years ago, I would have said, I wouldn't have had to talk to you about it. Let me say that. So I'm grateful that I did it. And I hope that my joy continues to rise from this because I was very nervous to do this. But I think my mother would be proud of me as well for all the broken mothers to reconcile with their daughters also, you know, and reconcile with themselves so they can
Right.
be healthier for themselves and their family, or their sons. So I will leave it there. But let's start with the baby elephant with the blue balloon on Amazon and just know that I'm like 10 times more proud of doing this.
As you should be. As you should be. You know, being vulnerable is not the easiest thing, but I thank God for your courage, your strength today, and your testimony. Like she said, make sure you guys please support by getting your copy of The Baby Elephant with the Blue Balloon. It will definitely bless your life as it is a children's book about replacing loss with love. Excuse me. But Trevilia, this wraps another episode of Replacing Loss with Love, the podcast. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone who tuned in.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. I wouldn't want to have done this with anybody else, and I'm so grateful for you. And tune in for what's coming next. Thank you. God bless you. Bye.
Amazing.